I'll start with Pininfarina. I'm curious about, and this really comes back to more of the presentations and also our own job, but I'd like to understand a little bit more about like the team and how is the team composed? How does it fit in? But also how is it then adopted, let's say, and how do these workflows kind of flow into the daily practice?
Sure. Is this working? Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. I think one thing that's really interesting is, as we saw in the last presentation, digital workflows tend to have similarities across disciplines, which is really inspiring, actually. But it's kind of the minor differences of how, and almost a difference of emphasis rather than of kind, that I find really interesting. So we try our best to work across disciplines. Obviously, we have these verticals that are kind of their own working groups, but really important to the way we work is the knowledge sharing opportunities across it. Specifically with automotive design, that becomes a lot more difficult just because the level of the way automotive secrets are kept is another level higher than the way that architectural concepts are kept. Not to say, and so that is one of the challenges we have, but we often kind of meet together at a very high level to discuss, how we should be, at least in a big way, approaching design problems and making sure generally the ethos is about doing exactly that, approaching design from a designer's perspective.
Thank you for the opportunity, but there is like one thing, as a young architect, when I graduated from a school, I always was kind of having a problem to find myself in a position of a designer or a computational designer or someone who's expert in tech in the AC industry. And that line for me was always like an uncomfortable place to go this side or that side to make a decision. But after a while, I start to realize that there is a position here that someone who can be a designer and also knows how to use the medium of architecture, which could be any digital tool that we use or AI, or like many years ago, it was steel and glass. So what I found in Pininfarina during my recent experience is that the way that they think about the design is exactly the same as the agenda is we should humanize the technology within the user end or designer end.
Great, thank you. And maybe if I could extend that similar question to Michael, let's say, like I can see both the beautiful craft and like passion for design and the object in this project, but also really the technology and kind of driving that. Like, is that something that's spread out through the whole team, or is it a collection of, I don't know, specialists? Or
I think, yeah, so when we started the office, I think the idea was that we would use the tools. I mean, this was back when I was in school, in grad school, that we would use the current tools to produce many types of projects with a small team, that we wouldn't have to rely on like the esoteric specialists. And of course that changes over the years with scale projects and things like that, but we're still, I mean, the studio's always between 5 and 10 people, and most of the people that we hire are trained as architects. And I think within that discipline, at least in school, they tend to learn a lot of different things. They in some ways are, good at a lot of things, but not experts at anything. And also they learn that with a critical approach to the tools that they're using. So that's quite good. So I think what ends up happening is people in the office tend to gravitate towards things they're interested in beyond just the management of projects. And then they learn while they're there, which I think is also nice to see. Like the mirror prototype was someone in our studio who had an interest in that, but like really kind of took it on, and they learned through making that, and so it really happens that way where, I guess my job is to just make sure like we have enough people with enough diverse interests that they can, grow in the office and help us do the work and push the kind of boundaries of, let's say, the discipline that we would like to. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then Justin, I think it actually fits in quite nicely as well with maybe it's not necessarily that directly architecture, but yeah, it really is about geometry and everything. How specialist do you need to be to actually use the software, let's say? Like,
to use the software, I think I think I have two answers for this question. So to be an engineer using this software is a challenge because it's a new way of thinking. And I will say that mechanical engineering is highly specialized. It's kind of the opposite of the architecture generalist who's trying to connect tools, and ultimately their goal is to make a building or design. They have an end state in mind and a vision in mind. I think within mechanical engineering, you have a set of requirements, you have a timeline, you have a set of criteria that your design needs to be able to meet. So what's interesting is that these tools, there are several tools like nTop that are more process-based or kind of computational design-based, but they kind of open up the mind of engineering, and really engineering becomes less about making your part and getting your job done, and becomes more about like, wow, there's a kind of like entire ecosystem of possibilities within these parts, within these projects. And I think automotive is a great example. There might be a class of or like a line of cars that are vehicles that's being created, not just one. So I think there is a challenge, I think, for users to learn this new mental model. And we're doing our best to kind of present information in a way that's familiar to kind of a feature-based modeling tool. But when it's successful, it's pretty beautiful that it changes the way engineers think, and it becomes more about like systems and processes and ecosystems rather than about the parts that they're trying to manufacture at the end of the day, which is, it's pretty awesome when it works. I think my second answer is I think it's reflected in the, just kind of talking about nTop itself, it's reflected in the software industry as well. Like I'm a product guy, I do UX. I think it's essential to be a generalist and always be learning, always try to be the novice in the room, connecting the dots between different industries. I think architecture especially has that across the industry, but that's it's super valuable in a software setting as well, just to be able to connect I don't know, be able to connect a piece of code to a feature or piece of value at the end of the day. So
Great.
All right, just part of that really resonated with me, the part about a new tool forcing you to think a new way. And honestly, I think that is, for me, that was the spark that got me into technology. You know, I never set out to be a technologist. Design was always at the heart of it. But and it's a conversation that can be difficult because people ask, you know, there's always this question of the pen versus the computer. Where's the creative spark? Where does it happen? And I am fully, you know, a lot of our designers at Pininfarina take out the pen or the marker, or the industrial designers, those beautiful Pantones, and make amazing sketches and do them really quickly. And so I think that's 100% valid. The thing that I have a hard time explain to somebody who hasn't had the experience with technology is that the types of questions you'll ask, even if you're using that pen, because you've had exposure to technology, might be different. And so that, I think, is really interesting. I think that's something where not only do we have to think differently, but actually the organizations we create around this have to reflect that differently. So that last diagram that I showed, that was literally just that break, that's the dumbest way I can think about the minimum effort required to integrate technology in a thoughtful and strategic way.
Thanks, and I'd actually like to kind of extend that comment and question to Shajay, like, yeah, the whole gaming and stuff, like, it's fascinating. How do you see that going forward and change the industry?
Yeah, I mean, maybe like we are biased from our own experiences, but we, like, for at least the last 20 years, like, we've genuinely looked at a wide range of industries, automotive design and gaming and so on, any design, like including fashion design, and like architecture, like we see that technology is a way to help make better design, right? And so we shouldn't forget about the design part. Like early on, like there was, like, because the technology was complex and new, like just getting some output was already you know, an achievement. But by now, like, we want to demonstrate that we are, as a profession, as a discipline, and mature to be able to use technology to in a way that, like, can deliver all the construction aspects and like the structural engineering aspects and the sustainability and so on, but also foreground the design, like, and so I think in that sense, like, so it's a kind of serial specialization, like you build up your like any musician or like a sports person, like you learn a drill at a time, and then over time you become confident enough like to be able to use like the tools as you feel comfortable. Like, so it's not like a demonstrator of the tools. It's like sometimes like you use like the simplest one, sometimes. So I think like we are maybe 25, 30 years into this new paradigm, like, and so like hopefully as an industry we start delivering a new and better services and products like to our end users, which is like millions of people, right? Like, and so we want to keep track of that. Like, so if the technology doesn't allow us to deliver good experiences to the users, like, then maybe we should look at another set of technology. That's how we inform the way our technological choices are on the benefits it delivers to our clients and the clients' clients. Yeah.
Thanks. I got many more questions, but maybe we take some from the room. Anyone? Any burning comments, Jonathan? There's a microphone coming right behind you. Thanks.
I'm curious, inspired by your the work in a lot of the 3D printing and the nTops and a number of other companies, that like how, and Szajay, you spoke about the 3D printing, like how close are we moving to the next level of hierarchy where architecture can go 2 more hierarchies down in terms of rather than mono materials, but we can actually design the architecture of materials.
Should I? Yeah, maybe I'll want him to start, or?
Yeah, I can start. So maybe a bit contradictory, but I believe that and like 3D printing as a manufacturing process, just like any other manufacturing process, it has a new set of possibilities, new set of constraints. But when I think about like the power of software and digitalization, it's not 3D printing itself that is like, I don't know, there's a lot of promises there that I think will take time to uncover what's actually possible. But I think I think the kind of digital transformation, or kind of like the transformation of your design process, or having new ways of working, transcends 3D printing. And even though it was like inspired by 3D printing having thousands of constraints and all these possibilities, I think that the actual real power is in turning kind of digital concepts into physical objects in general. And I think as much as I want to believe in 3D printing, I think that the inspiration for me with 3D printing was that all these futures were possible, and I think that kind of correlates pretty well to software as well. You kind of, by like the ideal is you can change the way that people work, or just by changing something fundamental about the data that's getting passed back and forth. So although I want to believe in the kind of promise of 3D printing, I'm not quite sure that it can deliver like the complexity that architecture requires. Maybe it can, but I think it already has delivered that power in a lot of ways, because it's kind of pushing the software industry to create new tools for new ways of working with existing manufacturing methods, which I think is pretty inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you think about like the 20th century paradigm of manufacturing or construction of buildings, like, I mean, they have 100-year head start. Like, so it will not be an overnight like replacement, like, but maybe little by little it will start, because for 2 reasons. A, like technology is maturing, and then also the talent or the designers are becoming more aware and can manipulate these things to meet complex constraints, like, and sometimes like you have to educate the client, like they might have like some like very very valid fears as to like whether it's going to cost them more, or will there be delays. Like anything new is going to be always like sometimes you don't even have insurance for like new things, like, and so all of these things need to be worked out, like, and we can see some of that happening. And I think like places like India or like where there's a lot of demand for construction, like they will look to leapfrog like already established building cultures where where we can build fast and quick. Like our experience in China, like in 15 years, like they've transformed like the talent pool. Like every major city has like a design institute which has like 2,000 to 3,000 people who can use CATIA, Revit, like and so on. So I think that's the kind of capacity building that a demand for cities and demand for buildings like generate. And so technology needs to mature, but also like the kind of the will to make it happen. There needs to be incentives, like and so I think yeah, 3D printing is quite likely to have a reasonable role. Like, I mean, maybe not everything needs to be printed or can be printed. But because like there is a lack of labor everywhere, like, and 3D printing is bringing new kinds of people into the industry, people who are software capable, and you need less physical labor. I mean, of course, you still need labor, but you need lesser labor. So, when we did the bridge, like 2 days later, many people from like India and places like Mexico were asking when we can have this printer, because that printer is so cheap. Like all you need is like a concrete recipe and a pipe, right? Like, and you don't even need the robot really. Like and cement is like ubiquitous. Like, I mean, it has like problems with its carbon footprint, but the printing, can reduce wastage, and so there are those incentives as well to make printing relevant. Like, so as long as the design paradigm catches up, like how you design with these new technologies, like it will lead to a transformation, we believe. Yeah, like so designers are very important for any new technology to catch on. Like, yeah.
Do you want to jump in?
I was just going to be a little bit provocative and just talk about mass customization is already very difficult in product design. I mean, you could argue that every architecture project is weirdly mass custom or is custom, right? I just want to be clear where we are as an industry as far as we haven't gotten to industrial, like full just industrialization. So I think the idea of then going the next level to mass customization of repeatable tested solutions is extremely difficult. I think it will take a while, not because it's hard to make the geometries, but for the same reason in industrial design, it's tough to have that perform at an expected level every time because it hasn't been tested. So I think there are a lot of challenges, and geometry is honestly one of the easier ones to tackle.
Thanks.
But maybe it'll start with niche things. Like already we can see in like footbridges, like those kind of yeah, it's also having like a pipeline of demand, right? Like, and so footbridges, like, or highway bridges, like, and foundations, like, and complex sewage systems, like they're all maybe like the first applications of like a new technology that really does solve a problem.
I think I have one more question in the back there in the middle.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And also where the conversation just left off picks up where my question starts. Szajay, I was really caught by something you said in your presentation and also in this last round of responses here about this notion of the customer's customer and being very mindful of them in how you pitch your work, how you execute your work, but also in the span between the kind of R&D work, but also the commercialization. The video that you showed at the end were new services, right, that you all are delivering at ZHA that thinking about spatial experience in a more expansive way. So while your presentation and comments sparked it, I direct this to everybody. How have you guys thought about the application, and as you just mentioned again, Szajay, about solving certain problems, but how the commercialization opportunities that you kind of found and how you all felt out that periphery to kind of find things that can lead to those kinds of services that you were showing there at the end?
I mean, yeah, like for us, like we almost 60 to yeah, at least 60% of our work we win by participating in competitions. And so we do have to design like once initially for the communicating the user experience through renders, through walkthroughs, and now through actual live VR and or online game experiences where the users could actually change something like in the car configurator. The simple thing is to just change the trimming or whatever. But in architecture, you could use this medium as a way to engage the user. And so that, I think, in terms of commercialization, that is the key. Direct to customer is a kind of when you can establish a relation directly with the users, that changes a lot. Even with Tesla, I think one of the things is that they started speaking directly to the user without the, even if you need a dealer in between, if once you start addressing, have a connection with the user, and you have some ways of receiving feedback. I mean, right now it's not fully worked out, because we have, it's not a complete loop. We just put it out there. We have no way to know what the users think yet. But gaming industry has figured that out a lot. So with the Fortnite experience that we saw, from it was 4 or 5 months of development, and every week we deploy a game and they have testers. And so there's no hiding, right? You have to design every part, every interaction has to be designed. Otherwise they give you really a piece of their mind. It's boring. Yeah, and then so it's once you get used to that kind of harsh criticism, I think the commercialization stems from having a community, right? But we haven't really thought about I mean, we're not venture capitalists, or we just we have that intuition that we should talk to the users of a building. Yeah.
And also what I appreciate is also just an optimism in the inherent capabilities of designers, right? To have a conversation or a place in a conversation in maybe realms they're not completely familiar with. So I see a little bit of that in kind of Pininfarina's evolution as a company that actually started in the building of not the automobile, but basically the exterior envelope, and that came down to a tradition of craft and how you did that. And then over the years evolved into everything that went into that. And then beyond that, realizing that it's really about first principles and how that can apply to other areas, such as, what we're doing most of the time, which is designing spaces and interiors. So I think traditionally architecture has been a little bit slow about understanding, how much they can offer, but not as a gift, but as an actual service to be compensated for. So I think we all have to do some creative thinking around that.
Cool. I think let's actually, I know there's many more questions, but let's pause it there and have a quick coffee break. We can ask more questions during the break, and then we'll be back here at 11:30 for the next session. Thank you.